So I'm going to start by sharing a story with you of something that happened to me earlier this year that I think reflects the critical inflection point that we're at around trust and technology. So I was asked to join a panel, and I was really excited for this conversation because it was going to be with Mark Benioff, the CEO of Salesforce, Dara from Uber, Ruth Porat from Alphabet, and Martin Sorrell, which is kind of strange when we're talking about trust, but anyway. And we were told the theme was going to be in technology we trust. And when we showed up, this was the theme, but something had been added to the set, a rather very large question mark, which of course changed the nature of the conversation that we had. So what I want to do today is explore what really is at stake when we talk about trust in technology being eroded, and why I believe transparency in itself is not the answer. So to start, I want to explain the link between trust and innovation. Now, why am I showing you a picture of a uterus and a train? Well, 200 years ago, when engineers first invented the first early steam trains, they were worried that people wouldn't want to ride this super fast way of getting around because they would be worried that the trains would fall off the tracks. But the trust barrier that actually got in the way had nothing to do with the trains or the tracks themselves. At the time, there was widespread fear and belief that human bodies weren't designed to move at high speeds. People believed that men's bodies would melt at speeds beyond 80 miles an hour, and wait for it, female bodies, of course, could only move at 50 miles an hour, because if they moved beyond 50 miles an hour, their uteruses would fly out. Now, this is a dead true story, and I know it sounds ridiculous today, but it's actually a beautiful illustration of what I call a trust leap. At the time, people weren't ready to take a trust leap. Now, a trust leap happens when we take a risk to do something new or in a fundamentally different way. And trust leaps play a really important role in our lives. They enable us to cross that gap of uncertainty. And when we've seen that enough people have survived the leap, that their uteruses didn't fall out, and they've benefited from it, millions of people will quickly follow. So trust leaps, they break down barriers, they create new possibilities, and they show how trust is a conduit for new ideas to travel. The other reason why I find trust leaps so fascinating is that if you zoom out and you map trust leaps against different areas of our lives, they show how our lives are changing. They show where we might leap next. So this is just one for transportation. We used to ride around on horses and camels and carts, and then we made the leap to trains and planes and cars and self-driving cars, and what's next? We are very good as human beings in taking trust leaps. It's something that comes very natural to us. So much so that we forget what it feels like before we take that leap. Now, I'm going to play you a video that I found of this poor woman experiencing a self-driving car for the first time. And I say poor woman because I'm only going to show you about 45 seconds, but if you watch the entire video, you see she's almost going to have a heart attack at the end, and her son who's in the car is just laughing at her. So if we could play the video, this is a woman experiencing a trust leap in the very early stages.
It's scary. Oh, there's cars coming. Oh, there's cars. Bill, this put me back for me controlling. Oh, dear Jesus. I could never. Oh, where's it going? God damn, Bill. Oh, my God. Oh, this is so scary. Oh, Jesus, this is my first day out, and I'm about to die. Oh.
I know, I really feel for her. But why am I showing this video? I'm showing this video because she needs to trust the car taking over the wheel. She needs to trust the technology, and she needs to trust the company creating the technology. Without all these things, she's stuck in that sea of uncertainty. And in the modern world, we are being asked to leap faster and higher than ever before. And that's why trust matters so much in technology. Now, what I want to do is explain to you a little bit about how trust works, because trust is one of those words, you open the paper any day and you see it. It's like disruption and innovation. But if you ask people what trust is and how it works, it's actually really hard to define. So I want to give you a visual way of thinking about trust. And in order to do this, we're going to do a very quick experiment, and you have to trust me that this is going to be okay. So I want you to take out your phones, and I want you to unlock them. And when you've done that, just wave them in the air. Okay, great. You all have phones. Perfect. I want you to swap the phone with the person on your left or the person on your right. But the idea is you shouldn't have your own phone. And now, I know. You've got 20 seconds, and I'm giving you permission to do whatever you want with that person's phone, okay? So you've got 20 seconds. Don't look at me. Okay, all right. You need to give the phones back now. I know this, you'd rather play with each other's phones. Shh. Okay, give the phones back now. Okay, so why did I do that exercise? The people I love, by the way, are the people who jump straight into that other person's phone. And I don't know what you're doing, tweeting or Instagramming or messaging that person's partner, but you did a lot with that person's phone in the space of 20, 30 seconds. Now, I made you do that because I wanted you to experience in a very small way what I'm going to try and visualize, which is this trust leap, how trust works. So whenever you're asking someone to trust something, so it could be a self-driving car, it could be giving your phone to a complete stranger, it could be a place that you've never been to. There's basically two states. There's a gap between a known place and an unknown place. The line between these two things is what we call risk. Risk is exposure to uncertainty with a potential loss that matters. But risk isn't what enables us to try new things. It's not what enables us to cross that gap. That remarkable force is trust. So the easiest way to think of trust is quite literally a bridge between the known and the unknown. And that's why my definition of trust is so simple. Trust is a confident relationship with the unknown. Now, when you start to view trust through this lens, you start to see why it's this beautiful alchemy of expectations and vulnerability, why it's a mixture of our hopes and our fears, and why it hurts when it breaks down, when people abuse our trust. Now, one of the questions I'm often asked is how can companies, how can entire sectors breach our trust and continue to financially do well? And I think this is a really interesting question. And there's really two answers to it. The first is there's often a lag time in user behavior, because for most users, convenience will trump trust to a point. So they will go for convenience until there's some other viable alternative. But the more interesting reason is because if you look at any business, it's actually built on two types of currencies. There's money, which is the currency of transactions, and you can lose trust and you can continue to transact. But money is only going to go so far, because what you've lost is the currency of interactions. And so what happens over time is that company loses permission to play an interactive role in your life. And this is why it's so serious when companies like Facebook and Sony and Equifax, when they lose our trust on such epic levels. So how are we going about restoring this problem? How many of you are having this conversation or have heard this conversation internally? Just raise your hand. The way we're going to build more trust is to be more transparent. Okay, so about half the room. It's really strange to me that transparency has become this tool, that we're talking about transparency as this like magical cure that's going to fix trust. Well, actually, it's not. And I want to explain why. Because this narrative that transparency is the solution to building more trust is absolutely everywhere. So I don't want to hop on about Facebook, but it's a beautiful illustration of how we've jumped to this solution of transparency. So I'm sure many of you watched the Senate hearings, but just as a quick reminder of how painful they were, I'm going to show you a clip of my 3 or 4 favorite moments, entertaining moments, I should say, from these hearings.
I say this gently. Your user agreement sucks. The purpose of that user agreement is to cover Facebook's rear end.
How do you sustain a business model in which users don't pay for your service?
Senator, we run ads.
I see. That's great. Whenever a controversy like this arises...
What about the part that people are worried about, not the fun part?
Well, what's that?
Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No.
So there were many more. It's actually quite hard to pick. I actually thought the last question was a really good question. It was the one that caught him unguarded. But if you go back and you read what those senators were calling for after the hearings, it was radical transparency. Now, with all due respect, that's partly because they didn't really understand and don't really understand how the system works. But this isn't an uncommon thing. But I want you to go back to the definition of trust. That trust is a confident relationship with the unknown. Trust and risk are brother and sister, but trust and transparency are not interdependent. In fact, when you think about it, if we need for things to be transparent, we've actually given up on trust. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that I'm against transparency, and I think efforts, for example, to understand how recommendation engines really work, and the push to make terms and conditions much simpler, these are all critical. But if our ultimate goal is to make things transparent, what we're heading for is actually, we're reducing the need for trust. We're not increasing trust. So I don't think that transparency should be the end goal. So if transparency isn't the end goal, and if transparency doesn't lead to more trust, what could be a way forward for these companies? How can we get rid of that question mark? Well, the answer is going to sound so simple, but there's a beautiful science behind it, and it's the science of being trustworthy. And we've been studying trustworthiness for decades, and it turns out there's a formula. And it doesn't matter if you're trusting a Uber driver, or if you're trusting a babysitter, or a real estate agent, or trusting Alexa. It comes down to these 4 ingredients. Now, you can think of the left-hand side as capability traits, how well you do things. And these are made up of competence. So do you have the skills and the experience and the knowledge to do what you say you're going to do? The second is reliability. And reliability to me is really interesting because it's really about whether you can depend on someone or something. And it comes down to 2 things. The first is time, so responsiveness. And the second is consistency of behaviors over time. So these 2 traits make up your capability, how you do things. The right-hand side is what we call the character traits, why we do things. And this is made up of benevolence, which is essentially empathy. So how much do I feel that this person or company cares? But the key ingredient, and where trust so often breaks down, is around integrity. Now, integrity is interesting because integrity is not necessarily about being a good person. Integrity is about interests and motives. It's about feeling like that company or person is on your side. And where trust breaks down is when one person's intentions doesn't align with another. There's a misalignment of intentions. And if you think of all different areas of our lives, whether it be politics or what's happening in technology or in your own personal life, it's often integrity where trust breaks down. So I think to get rid of that question mark, I should say, to remove the question mark, we need to figure out how to move tech companies' cultures from a focus on efficiency and growth at all costs to integrity at scale. Now, this is really easy to say, but it's incredibly hard to achieve. And the reason why it's hard to achieve is because we're actually living in this age of trust on speed, right? We swipe right for everything, and we trust someone. And the irony is that efficiency is the enemy of trust. Trust needs friction. It needs us to slow down. It needs time. It needs continuous investment and effort to make sure the good intentions that are often at the core of a product and organization to begin with don't get lost somewhere along the way. So I think when we're calling for transparency, what we're actually seeking is reassurance and confidence that a company's intentions and incentives are aligned with the well-being of people in society, that they have at scale achieved integrity and they deserve our trust. And these are the organizations I believe will leap with into the unknown in the future. Thank you very much.